Hello, my name is Alice Russell, and I'm going to give a short presentation on authenticity and its importance in counselling, including a self-reflection in regards to where I currently feel I sit with the construct and how I might hope to develop authenticity in future practice. Authenticity has existed as a central topic of philosophical thought and theoretical conversation for centuries, as illustrated by this quote from author and orator Frederick Douglass in 1849. "I prefer to be true to myself, even at the hazard of incurring the ridicule of others, rather than to be false and to incur my own abhorrence." While there are many definitions of authenticity in empirical literature, I really like the simplicity of to know yourself and to act accordingly, from an article by Wood et al. In 2008, in which the most common psychological measure of authenticity, the authenticity scale, was developed. Authenticity can be broken down into trait and state authenticity. Trait authenticity describes the authentic expression of thoughts, emotions, and values, while state authenticity describes a person's sense of internal identification with their thoughts, emotions, and values. Both state and trait authenticity are captured in Kearney and Goldman's model of authenticity, which specifies 4 separate but interrelated components. Grounded in self-determination theory, which posits that authentic functioning occurs when a person's actions reflect their true or core self, Kearney and Goldman developed a multi-component theory of authenticity. According to this theory, the construct of authenticity is made up of the following components: self-awareness, that is, understanding one's motives, feelings, desires, and self-relevant cognitions; unbiased processing, that is, objectivity with respect to both the positive and the negative self aspects, internal experiences, and private knowledge, with an absence of interpretive distortions such as denial, defensiveness, or self-aggrandizement. The next is behavior, acting in accordance with one's values, preferences, and needs, rather than to please others, obtain rewards, or avoid punishments. And finally, relational orientation, that is, striving for openness, sincerity, and truthfulness in one's close relationships. Using this model as the basis, they developed the authenticity inventory to measure the construct. The scale included 12 items measuring self-awareness, 10 measuring unbiased processing, 11 measuring behavior, and 12 measuring relational orientation, totaling 45 items. This scale was originally used to assess the relationship between authenticity and healthy psychological functioning, as well as social role functioning. Another commonly applied measure is the authenticity scale, developed by Wood et al. In 2008. This is perhaps the most used in scientific studies. This measure is based on the person-centered conception of authenticity, grounded in Carl Rogers' theory of person-centered therapy. In this conception, authenticity involves congruency between a person's actual physiological states, emotions, and deep-level cognitions, as seen in box A, their conscious awareness of physiological states, their emotions and their cognitions, as seen in box B, and their behavior and their emotional expressions, as seen in box C. In this theory, it is the congruency between these aspects of the self that results in authenticity. This congruency is determined by 3 aspects: self-alienation, or a feeling of being out of touch with oneself; authentic living, which describes living in accordance with one's beliefs or values; and the extent to which one believes they have to conform to the expectations of others. The authenticity scale incorporates 7 items representing self-alienation, 11 representing authentic living, and 7 representing accepting external influence, making up a total of 25 items. This measure was initially used to determine the relationship between authenticity and well-being. Carl Rogers' theory of person-centered therapy, upon which Wood et al.'s person-centered conception of authenticity is based, is one of the earliest counselling theories, which emphasizes authenticity as a fundamental quality of an effective counsellor. In his journal article, The Necessary and Sufficient Conditions of Therapeutic Personality Change, originally published in 1954, Rogers described 3 conditions that were necessary in order to develop an effective therapeutic relationship. These were congruence, empathy, and unconditional positive regard. While a small distinction between congruence and authenticity exists, congruence essentially defines state authenticity, with trait authenticity extending further to describe the outward expression of congruence. Congruence, or authenticity, is often considered the most important of these conditions, as it is considered necessary for the other conditions to occur. In order to effectively convey empathy and positive regard, it is essential that the therapist's expression be perceived as genuine. Being perceived as genuine or authentic by the client has been demonstrated to have significant impacts on the therapeutic relationship and on client outcomes. I have personally experienced the impact of this in my role in crisis support at a suicide prevention hotline. I mentioned to my supervisor that sometimes when paraphrasing or reflecting a story or a feeling back to a person, I would stumble over my words, to which they suggested that when this happens, the best thing to do might be to simply acknowledge this to the client in as simple terms as, "Gosh, I'm sorry, I really mixed up my words there." The next time I felt that this had happened, I tried out this response and felt an immediate shift into authenticity that strengthened the connection and brought us an ease into the conversation in place of where a prior awkwardness had been. The simple act of acknowledging a small mistake broke down barriers by showing that I too was human. Learning to admit small mistakes openly in a client interaction was a small but significant step for me in moving towards showing up authentically, and it additionally helped me to realize that feeling nervous about sounding stupid or coming across as incompetent was something that for me was blocking or interfering with the connection I had with the other person. While I've always had the intention of showing up authentically when working with people, until that point I had not consciously considered what might block this. Following this, I spent some time considering and came up with a small list of what I think to be my strengths and weaknesses when it comes to authentic practice. This small exercise is a simple example of a reflective practice, one of 3 approaches I intend to utilize in the future to develop and maintain authenticity in counselling roles. Reflective practice, alongside self-care, have become central to helping professions in recent years. While reflective practice facilitates the development of self-awareness, self-care facilitates the ability to embody it. My experience of this is that when I feel tired or burnt out, I'm less thoughtful and engaged in interactions. I have also found that when I take a moment to breathe and take in my surroundings, I am able to stop overthinking and simply be present with the client. For me, this presence represents true authenticity. I'm not preparing or planning, simply responding and interacting, human to human, in a natural way. While the concept of authenticity is as integral to effective therapy is at least as old as Carl Rogers, it remains a central topic of research and discussion today. In an article summary of a study conducted in 2005 as part of a master's thesis into the significance of therapists' genuineness from the client's perspective, authenticity, referred to as genuineness in this article, was demonstrated as crucial to the therapeutic process, particularly in the areas of healing and personality change. Beyond this, the study identified numerous benefits of appropriate self-disclosure by the therapist, including positive effects on the quality of the therapeutic relationship, facilitating and deepening the client's process of experiencing, facilitating constructive changes in behavioural and mental patterns, and an increased sense of the therapist's authentic presence. Alongside these benefits to the client, authenticity has been used as a measure of well-being in and of itself, and as such, there is, beyond doubt, inherent value to both client and counsellor in the conscious development of this attribute. Thanks for listening.